All right, today we're headed back in time, way back, to explore one of the most powerful ideas from the ancient world, the weighing of the heart. This incredible, super serious final judgment that decided a soul's entire eternity. So, let's get into how it all worked. But first, let me ask you something. How do you actually measure the value of a life? Is it about how much money you made? The stuff you built? Well, the ancient Egyptians, they had a really specific and honestly fascinating answer that all came down to a single cosmic trial. You see, for the Egyptians, death, it wasn't really the end. It was more like a doorway. Once you passed on from, the world of the living, your soul was off on this pretty dangerous journey. But you weren't heading to just nothingness. No, you were headed for a final exam, basically. And this is where that journey ended, the Hall of Ma'at. Ma'at, she was the goddess of truth, of cosmic balance, of pure justice. So this hall, think of it like a divine courtroom, a really serious, really formal place where your entire life was about to be put under the microscope. Okay, so every trial needs a courtroom, right? And this was no ordinary setup. We're talking about a tribunal of the gods themselves, and each one had a super critical job to do in figuring out where your soul was going to spend eternity. So just picture this scene for a second. First up, you've got Anubis, the jackal-headed god leading the probably very nervous soul up to the scales of justice. Then you have Thoth, the god of wisdom, basically the court scribe, ready to write down every single detail of the verdict. And just hanging out nearby is Ammit, the devourer, this terrifying creature just waiting, hungrily, for any hearts that don't make the cut. And overseeing this whole thing, the big boss, Osiris, the ultimate judge. And as Anubis is leading you forward, he gives you this one very clear warning. Look, it didn't matter how powerful you were or how much money you had. In this room, the only thing that had any value was virtue. Being virtuous, it just meant being a good person, living a moral life. That was the only currency that counted in the afterlife.
Right there in the middle of the hall, these incredible golden scales of truth. This was the main event. And the symbolism here is just, wow. Your entire life, everything you've ever done, weighed against something that's almost weightless. A single, pure feather.
So, on one side of the scale, the gods placed the heart. Now, for the Egyptians, the heart wasn't just, the thing that pumps blood. It was everything. It was where your intelligence, your emotions, your conscience, all of it lived. Think of it like a spiritual hard drive that recorded every single thing you did, every thought, every little intention you ever had. And on the other side of the scale, the feather of Ma'at. This one little feather represented absolute truth, total purity, cosmic order. It was literally the symbol of a perfect, blameless life. So the question was pretty simple but huge. Could your messy, complicated human life actually be as light and pure as truth itself?
I mean, the stakes here could not have been higher, because depending on which way those scales tipped, you had one of two fates: glorious eternity or complete and total oblivion. And there was absolutely no in between.
The verdict from these scales was final. Absolutely final. If you lived a good, righteous life, your heart wouldn't be weighed down by guilt, and it would balance perfectly with the feather, or even be lighter. But if your heart was heavy, full of lies and bad deeds, it would tip the scales down. And if that happened, you were unworthy. Your heart was tossed to Emmet, who would devour it, and poof, you were just gone, erased from existence forever.
But for the good ones, the virtuous, whose hearts were light and true, Osiris himself would deliver the good news. This was it, the ultimate validation. The moment you find out that yes, you did it right, you lived your life in line with truth and justice.
And what was the prize for being righteous? You got to enter the field of reeds. Now, this wasn't some boring, cloudy, ghostly place. They pictured it as a perfect, idealized version of Egypt, a true paradise with an abundance of everything. You've got endless fields, beautiful rivers, you get to hang out with the gods, see your loved ones again. It was the ultimate reward for living a good, honest life.
So, why are we talking about this? Why does this ancient myth still matter? Because, the weighing of the heart, It wasn't just some scary story about what happens when you die. It was a really powerful moral compass. It literally shaped how millions of people lived their everyday lives for thousands of years.
And it all boiled down to this one single idea, ma'at. Living by the rules of ma'at, living with truth, order, and justice. That was the whole game. It was the only way to get that light heart and that glorious afterlife.
And this is where you can really see how a belief about the afterlife totally shaped day-to-day life. If you wanted to make sure your heart was going to be light on those scales, you had to be honest. You had to be sincere. You had to treat other people fairly, with a sense of balance. The ultimate goal for you and for your entire community was justice. They truly, fundamentally believed that every single thing they did, no matter how big or small, was actively shaping their own destiny.
And that kind of brings us full circle, back to that first question I asked. The Egyptians built this incredibly detailed system all to make sure that a life was measured by its moral weight, not its material wealth. They believed every single action mattered, and that one day you'd have to answer for it. It really makes you think, doesn't it? In our own lives, today, what skills are we using to measure a life? And what do we think our actions are really shaping?